Hello, science friends. We're here to begin our sixth and final unit of science this year, natural hazards. In this unit, we're going to explore some really cool but very dangerous things that happen on the Earth, and we're going to talk about ways that we can reduce those impacts on humans. So today we're going to first start out by doing our first lesson called natural hazards. This is where we're going to talk about what natural hazards are and kind of give us a preview of the things we're going to learn in the rest of the unit. So here we go. Natural processes are constantly changing Earth's surface. In some cases, these processes are harmful to humans and other living things. Something that is harmful or dangerous is called a hazard. Earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanoes are three natural processes that can be hazardous to humans. Okay, so the first thing I want you to know from this is, what is a hazard? A hazard is something that is harmful or dangerous. Okay, and that can go for anything in life. It doesn't have to be natural hazards, as this lesson is called. Natural hazards are just one type of hazard. A spill on the floor is a hazard, right? Anything that can be dangerous or harmful to others is a hazard. In this case, though, we are going to talk specifically about natural hazards. Okay? So, the three natural hazards that we just mentioned on this page were earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanoes. And those will be things that we spend a lot of time discussing throughout the rest of this unit. So let's take a closer look at those in depth. Okay, the first one is a very interesting picture, very scary to look at though. This picture is of an earthquake. Actually, I should say it's the aftermath of an earthquake. It's what it looks like after the earthquake happened. An earthquake is the shaking of Earth's surface caused by sudden movement of rock beneath the surface. Earthquakes can cause buildings to collapse and roads and bridges to buckle. They may also break power lines and water pipes. So for today, that's what I want you to know. We will continue and get more in depth about what earthquakes are and how they happen in a future lesson. But for today, it's important that you know that basically what is an earthquake is when the surface of the earth, there's sudden movement of the rock beneath the surface, and that causes a lot of shaking on the surface where we are. Okay? Big things that can happen as a result of an earthquake are that buildings can collapse. Roads like this can break into pieces and then start to buckle. And what that means is, do you see how this right here kind of shows this is collapsing underneath? So that's what buckling means. It's kind of caving in on itself. That can happen to both roads and bridges, okay? And power lines and water pipes can break. And you might be wondering, why are some of those so dangerous? Well, when we talk about roads and bridges buckling, it's clear to see that it's possible that because this road is broken into pieces, things could fall in. Vehicles could fall in, people could fall in, and that's a very dangerous thing. Okay? As far as buildings collapsing, just like when we talked about landslides, anytime a building collapses, it's dangerous because anyone in or nearby could be affected or hurt by that. Also, as far as the power lines and water pipes breaking, you may have seen power lines loose around your neighborhood. And if they fall and touch the ground, they carry electricity, as we talked about way back in the beginning. Those lines carry electricity to homes and other buildings. So if a line were to break, the electricity that's flowing through could still be active, and if you were to touch that, it could electrocute you. So that's a very dangerous situation. As well as water pipes breaking, because they can cause floods in neighborhoods and damage homes and properties. Okay? The next one we're going to look at is a volcano. Okay? And for this one, there's a very interesting picture of a volcano. You really can't see too much other than a lot of smoke, okay, and some ash. I know it's hard to tell, but some of this is ash coming up from the volcano, as well as some of the lava itself. So it says volcanoes form when molten rock from deep inside Earth rises to the surface. Okay? Volcanic eruptions can spew hot ash and molten rock high into the air. When these materials come down, they can bury buildings and roads and damage crops. Volcanic ash in the air can also disrupt airline traffic. Okay, so we're used to seeing a lot of, when we see volcanoes, we see lava flowing out, which is absolutely something that happens when volcanoes erupt. But what some people don't realize is that it's when it's shooting the lava out, because sometimes we think it's just slow flowing lava out of the volcano. That's not always how it looks. In this case, the way the volcano erupted, it's actually shooting things out through the top of the volcano, not just flowing down the sides. The things that it's shooting out are hot ash and molten rock high into the air. So ash would be like, if you were to burn something and the remnants of what's left over are little pieces of ash. That's actually being spewed into the air right now. It's being shot up into the air. Okay? And it could also be some molten rock shooting up there. And when those things come popping out of the volcano, wherever they land, that can be hazardous because it can bury roads, or buildings. It can damage crops. It can really damage anything nearby. And volcanoes have a possibility of damaging things not just close by, but in surrounding areas as well, depending on how high things come out of the volcano and how far the lava spreads. But again, we'll talk more about volcanoes in future lessons. But it is important to know that this, when it comes out, not only are we talking about the ash and the rock that's coming out, there's lots of smoke coming out. And it says that can disrupt airline traffic because, let's say an airplane were flying around in the air near this volcano. Clearly, since we can't see through this to see what's on the other side or anything that's nearby, a plane would not be able to see through that and know where it was going either. So that would definitely disrupt airline traffic because planes would be unable to fly through that area, and if they did, they would not be able to see where they were going or what was happening in front of them. Okay? The final one we'll talk about is tsunamis. Again, this is a really interesting picture to look at, but very scary too. Can you imagine being one of the people around this area when this happened? A tsunami is a series of ocean waves caused by an underwater earthquake, an underwater volcanic eruption, or a landslide. Anything that causes Earth's surface to move beneath the water also moves the water. When large tsunamis come ashore, they can destroy buildings, roads, or even entire villages. Okay, so it's important to know that whatever causes a tsunami happens under the ground. Okay, if an earthquake happens and it's under the water, not just under the ground, under the water is what I meant to say, that can cause the water to move. And you guys know that from way back in the beginning when we talked about water waves in our waves unit, when we would kind of did that experiment where we took the card and kind of moved it along the water, anything that's happening under the water comes up to the surface, okay? And we're talking about a volcano or an earthquake or a landslide happening underneath the water. That's going to cause big, serious disruption to the water and cause very large waves. Now, remember, the waves out in the middle of the ocean really aren't doing much. It's when they come ashore that the waves start to break and move in towards the shore. And that's what you'll see with a tsunami. It's the disruption in the middle of the ocean that kind of causes the bumpiness a little bit that pushes the waves towards the shore. And then when they come ashore, they bring what looks like this. It's important to know that although water doesn't seem like it might be that big, when you think of a rainstorm, you're like, oh, maybe it'll cause a little erosion, no big deal. In this case, these tsunami waves can often be extremely large. And when they come ashore, they can destroy buildings or roads or entire villages, okay? And that also means that anyone in those areas that has not gotten to safety could be hurt as well, okay? But again, we'll talk about tsunamis more in the future in some of our upcoming lessons, okay? So to end today's lesson, let's talk about some important things. A hazard is anything that is harmful or dangerous. So that means a natural hazard is something in nature that is harmful or dangerous. The three natural hazards that we talked about today were earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis. Earthquakes are caused by movement underneath the surface, which causes disruption on the surface. It causes the surface to shake, okay? And why earthquakes are dangerous is because they could cause buildings to collapse, cause roads or bridges to buckle. They could cause power lines to come down or water pipes to break. Volcanoes are when a volcano erupts, so molten lava comes out of the volcano. Once it was in, now it's coming out, and it's causing not only the lava to come out, but smoke and ash and molten rocks as well. which is very dangerous because not only can the lava flow towards surrounding areas, but the things shooting up out of the volcano can land on certain things or cover them. Okay, things can be covered with ash, and it can disrupt airline traffic because the visibility is not there, which means you can't see what's going on through there. Finally, we have tsunamis, and that's when something occurs underneath the water, like a volcanic eruption, an earthquake, or a landslide under the water, which causes the waves to form and move towards the shore. And those waves are very large, and when they wash upon the shore, they can cause damage to things like roads, buildings, or villages. They can destroy whole villages if they're that large when they come ashore. Okay? Tomorrow we'll get into more specifically some of the natural hazards we've talked about today. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Good luck on your activities.